everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rana Realty, where Rana Realty talks across the country. Here we are in Westminster, in the greater Vancouver area, with Ray in this beautiful listing that's just been listed on the market. Ray, tell us about yourself and.
Sure. Yeah. So thanks again for having me on your show here. A little bit about myself. My name is Ray, and I've been doing this for just over 6 years now. And I love my job. Obviously, I wake up and it doesn't feel like work. It's almost like a dream. But I my specialty is first-time home buyers and development land. So those are the two areas where I mostly do a big chunk of my business comes from those two areas. I think I'm going to be in this industry for a little while. So just continuously growing and love meeting new people.
Yeah. So what brokerage are you from, and what kind of any social media handles that you want to put out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm with Remax in the Archibald Real Estate Group. You can follow me at ray.mon_ on Instagram, and then you can find me on Facebook at Raymon.
Perfect. And as always, guys, anything relating to Ray or his information is always going to be down below in the description, so you can check it out there as well.
Sweet.
So let's dive right into it, Ray.
Sure.
With being a first-time home buyer specialist here in the greater Vancouver area, what are some of the incentives the first-time home buyers get here in this area?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple of different things. One is when you purchase a property in BC, you do have to pay a land transfer tax. That tax is 1% on the first 200,000, 2% on 200,000 to 2 million, and then 3% beyond that.
Okay.
The taxes get higher the more the more expensive your property. But if you're talking about first-time home buyers, you're probably going to be looking under $2 million.
Okay.
And so what the BC government allows you to do is you actually get a break on the tax if your purchase price is under $500,000.
Okay.
So I sold a one-bed in Vancouver earlier this year, and we actually bought it at $499,900, just to avoid him having to pay that $8,000 tax he would have.
Fair enough.
So that's a break that you get.
Okay.
Federally, Canada also gives first-time home buyers a bit of a grant. They'll basically what they do is they match your down payment. So if you put 5% down, which you have to do, by the way, for those who don't know, you do have to put 5% down. And if your purchase price is over $1 million, you have to put a minimum of 20% down. And that's about residential properties. If it's commercial property, that's a completely different structure.
Of course.
So the government will match your 5% down payment, but there's a lot of restrictions to that structure. So it pretty much, it's not really practical here in here in Vancouver, in the greater Vancouver area. But if you were in Alberta, Saskatchewan, those kind of places, that kind of structure works. And the reason for that is because there's a limitation. You can only buy 4 times what your household income is.
Exactly. Yep.
And so for most people making $60K a year, if you times that by 4, it doesn't give you a whole lot of flexibility.
You're not working with a lot there.
You're not working with a lot. There's barely anything on the market in that range here. But if you were in other markets across Canada, that could be a benefit. So, but here in BC, or I should say the greater Vancouver area, the main thing is the property purchase tax rate for first-time home buyers.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very good answer. Now, going into the market here with COVID, right? We're living through a pandemic, especially as a realtor that's been working in the industry for about 6-7 years now. I myself have been in the industry for a few years myself, so this is our first time experiencing something like this professionally.
Totally.
How has that market played a role, or how has the pandemic played a role in this market here?
Yeah, huge. So when the pandemic hit in March, market basically went stagnant for a little while. It wasn't like prices were tanking, but the activity was next to none. The showings were very no one really wanted to go out. We were all scared, right? Everyone was. And so what you do is you stay at home. Right? And when people stay at home, they start looking, okay, maybe I should paint that wall, or maybe I should change those windows, or maybe I should do the roof because I have some extra time. Or maybe I should replace my flooring. And separate thing is that's how the lumber prices went up as well. Consumers were there was a lineup outside Home Depot every day.
Crazy.
Right?
It was crazy. The demand was through the roof.
Unreal. So what ended up happening is after the summer, I know Ontario was a little different, but here in BC, our cases started falling. I remember in July of 2020, we were down to 7 or 8 cases a day, which to us basically seemed like there's no such thing as COVID anymore, right?
It don't exist no more.
It doesn't exist anymore. So people are going out, and then people started getting comfortable with going to listings, going showings. And when you stay at home during COVID, people were working from home as well. And so if you were like in a one bed in downtown Vancouver, you're like, man, I could probably sell this thing. I mean, it might be a slow sale, but I could take that money, move it to somewhere in the valley, and get triple the space for not much more, you know, not much more money down. And so that's what kind of started this movement. So in August, we saw things picking up. August 2020, we saw things picking up, more activity, more sales activity, more listings. Not a lot of listings, there was a ton more buyers, which definitely drove the price up. And that basically did not stop until, I would say, July of this year. So it's just been a crazy shoot up. I think the craziest month we saw was March of this year. You know, people started getting vaccinated. People are feeling that things are getting back
more confident about what's going on with the process of COVID and the pandemic, how it's going towards an end.
And prices were just skyrocketing, like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 above the asking price. Like I wouldn't even flinch if you told me something.
Bidding wars going on left and right.
It was pretty crazy. I mean, again, it depends on the certain. It's not all across the board. There's certain segments. So like I bought that one same client that bought the one bed. We were the only offer on that place, and it was listed at $499, and we paid $499, right?
Exactly.
But there's other properties that were listed at 1.4 that I put in offers at 1.8, 1.85. So you know, it all depends on the market.
The market, the place, the home, the buyer condition, how much the financial backing is. So all that plays a factor. Funny you mentioned that whole condo scenario, though, because even in Toronto, saw kind of a similar trend when it came to people getting away from the condo market and going to detached properties or semi-detached properties, because they just figured, hey, if we're going to be locked down into a place, we might as well be locked down in a $1.5 million house rather than a $1.5 million penthouse in Toronto.
Totally.
So you saw a bit of that shift over there as well, and now there's a huge supply of condos sitting in the Toronto area. Does that kind of relate to what's happening here in Vancouver? Do you see a lot more abundance of condos sitting in the market?
Same thing here. I think we've already seen the bottom of the downtown market. So it's kind of up on the rise now. But yeah, we did see the bottom of it where there was 200 active listings in a given month and only 20 sales. So that's like, you know, that shows you that the market's not moving there. You know, I had a listing in downtown and it took us 4 weeks to sell it, and we're only dealing with one offer at a time, and we're giving them 2-week subjects, and you know, so it's like that market was slow, and then it's crazy because you move just out of downtown in Fairview and Mount Pleasant, which are neighborhoods in Vancouver, and it's a completely different market. Everything was on fire. So same thing here than Toronto in comparison to Toronto. The downtown market was dying, and then the outskirts of downtown was booming, because why would you want to live like in a you know 800 square foot or 700 square foot 2-bed where you could move to Langley and get a 1600 square foot 3-bed for basically the same price.
Same price, exactly. Now I'm curious, with COVID itself in mind, did properties that are, you know, let's say below $1 million see a bit of that appreciation jump compared to properties that are, let's say, $3 million plus? Did they have that same amount of jump, or was it more so for the lower end properties as compared to the high end in terms of appreciation?
Lower end properties are always, like lower end as in like $1 million below is always going to see a high activity. Even in a slower market here in the Vancouver real estate market, you're always going to see that pretty fast moving. Because you only have to put 5% down, and it's much easier to get into. The 1 million plus market is obviously a little slower, but then again, it depends on the segment, right?
And so
the area. So like the 1 million plus in downtown, not a lot of activity. But for around 1.1, 1.2, you can get a detached house in Surrey or even North Delta. So it's like, why, you know, that market was crazy because you can get a detached at that price. Whereas the downtown market was kind of dead because you get a 2-bedroom, 900 square foot condo for that much, right? So
So on average, with the market here, with how it's been through the pandemic, as well as now you're saying it's starting to cool off a little bit, you're seeing a little bit of that numbers kind of drop in terms of that hype. What is appreciation like for a regular detached property on average in the Greater Vancouver area that you've seen during the pandemic and afterwards?
So I'll give you an example instead of a percentage. I had a buddy of mine who wanted to buy, his parents wanted to buy a second home, a single family home. And he said, my budget's around 900 to 950K. I want to keep it under $1 million, and I want to make sure it has a basement suite. So I want to rent out the basement, rent out the upstairs. Doesn't really care about the condition. Something older is fine. He's like, if it's a really bad fixer-upper, I'll fix it up and rent it out. And so that was December 2020. I had about 12. This is too many options, but there were about 12 viable options for him on the market in December, which is, because of Christmas, it's gonna be a slow market anyway. Not a lot of inventory. Yeah. And we didn't really, we didn't make a decision. And in February to March 2021, under $1 million, I basically had no options for him. Yeah. And that's when there was more inventory on the market. Wow. But I saw, something on sale for 1.25. That was the sale price. It was sold for 1.25, and the person who bought it did not renovate it and bought it for $900K in August 2020.
Oh my god!
So that it went up basically 350 grand in 6 months.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny you mention that because so far we've gone across to a lot of cities, right? Regina, Edmonton, Calgary, Kelowna, Kamloops. Spoken to a lot of realtors there as well, and I've noticed a lot of these places they didn't really have the same trend as you're describing it because there are a lot of smaller markets, a lot of different markets. Yeah. And I kept trying to explain to them the same thing you explained to me about how Toronto is. Yeah. And now looking at it from a point of view of this is very similar to what's been going on in Toronto because there's stories all over the board. Yeah. With properties that have appreciated $200,000-$300,000 in a matter of a year and a half. And they're the same renovations. There's nothing been touched, nothing been done. It's just a matter of people that just rode the market. They didn't time the market. They got lucky. They rode the market, and the properties are appreciated, and they had made a killing doing so. Now, in terms of the rental market here in the Greater Vancouver area, how do you see the market? Is it a very strong market? Is it a market that's kind of growing in terms of rental, or are people more looking to get away from rental and just kind of get into their properties?
Yeah, I think everyone wants to get away from a rental, but it's not easy. I think, especially for millennials, we have a hard time saving. Yeah. And it's tough because you see so many people living paycheck to paycheck, right? Yeah. I have a friend right now. He can't afford much. Yeah. But I was like, even if you get an older property, a smaller place, it's likely better for you, for you to purchase that place. I mean, considering that the building's in good condition, and we're talking about a condo here.
The bone's got to be right. The foundation's got to be right.
Exactly, right? So I was like, if we can find you something, even in the $300,000 range, that kind of checks the boxes in terms of like, you're not going to have a $80,000 levy coming up. That's going to completely ruin your life. But it's way better than dumping, 20, 30 grand a year on rental. Yeah. Exactly. Because that you're paying off someone else's mortgage. I said even if you have like 20 or 30 grand saved up, you can I would say more like 30 grand saved up. Yeah. You can use that to purchase something, right? Yeah. So it's I know you can rent a really nice place, but it's probably better for you to pay off your own mortgage, even though it might not be your dream home. Yeah. But yeah, people are everyone's trying to get into the real estate market because there's one thing in common between all wealthy people is they all own real estate, right?
Yeah. So, especially now for this country on its own, real estate and real estate rental market is the biggest earning contributing factor to the GDP. Totally. $264 billion just in 2020, and the number 2 spot at $80 billion less of manufacturing. So it is a huge earner for this country, and especially during the pandemic, with how much money they had to give to the citizens and people in this country in terms of grants and bursaries and programs and all this kind of fundings that they were giving out, they really had to make the money back. So, which is why you also saw, there wasn't a lot of regulations being put in place to kind of cool the market down from the government side because it's an incentive for them to let it ride out because they're earning more money.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And going back to the whole rental market, though, what I'm really curious about is, on average, let's say, again, of course, I understand that it always depends on the area, the type of the property, how big, how renovated, and all that stuff. But on average, a family looking to rent, let's say, a unit like this, where we have 3 bedrooms, 2 washroom, what type of rental should they have in mind that kind of goes for it? Yeah,
so for like a place like this where you have 1,700 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 full bath, that's nicely renovated.
Right by the water, that too.
Yeah, exactly, right by the water, by the SkyTrain. Yeah. Like this is a hot product to rent. Yeah. Something like this would cost someone around $3 grand a month.
$3 grand a month. Yeah. Wow, that's fabulous.
It's a lot. Yeah. So if you moved out towards an area that doesn't have a SkyTrain nearby or isn't in a very fast moving area, then of course you maybe be in the $2,000 to $2,500 range.
A little bit lower, okay.
But that's what it would be for a 3 bedroom.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. Now, in terms of the actual younger generation, because I know we talked a little bit about like your friend as well. Him having a bit of a hard time when it comes to being able to afford anything in these markets. Because again, I've spoken to you guys about it on the previous podcast as well, previous videos as well. You know, the ability to save for a down payment for the younger generation or the people that are coming into this country is getting surpassed by the appreciation of these markets, these major markets, Toronto and Vancouver, year over year. And unfortunately, these people feel that they're more so, stuck. Which is why you're also seeing a lot of homelessness go up in these major markets. Because people just don't have an option, they don't have a choice. So we've been on this journey as Rana Realty and the team behind, and we've been fortunate enough to meet amazing people like yourself, other realtors that have given the perspective and taken their time to talk to us and kind of give the audience as well as us a perspective of what's really going on in the market right there, right then. Because there's a huge lack of, not just valuable but accurate information in these markets out there. So this journey itself has been eye-opening. But the younger generation in general, I was shocked. So far, these smaller markets like Regina, Edmonton, Calgary, there's a lot of opportunities there for people that cannot get anything happening in these markets. And I'm curious, are you seeing a trend here with the younger generation that are deciding to move out to smaller places like Regina, Edmonton, Calgary, as compared to staying here in Vancouver because they just think it's too much?
Yeah, not just the younger generation, it's families as well, right? Like I have clients that have kids that are growing and they want to move to the island or they want to move, to Kelowna or Kamloops and places like this because with working from home, it doesn't really matter where you live. A lot of the times, I did have a client who wanted to move out of town. They work from home, but their employer wouldn't employ them if they weren't, within a certain distance from the office. So I mean, that's always going to happen. But I think everyone's moving a little bit out of town. I think some people definitely. Vancouver in general has a certain charm to it. There's so much natural beauty out here. So, that's what you're paying for at the end of the day is to be in Vancouver, right? But I feel like, for the younger generation, they need to talk to a financial advisor and save as much as they can. And then don't also, people place way too much weight on what they hear on, through the media. Like, house prices are crazy. Like, yes, when you hear, something selling $400,000 over the asking price, you might think that someone literally paid $400,000 more than what it's worth.
People don't understand.
But people don't understand. It's listed low purposely.
Exactly.
And as an agent, when I see something listed 400 below the market value, I mean, I get kind of upset about it because now I got to do extra work to figure out what it's worth.
And I'd be bidding war on it too now because people think that it actually is worth that.
Exactly.
There's always those folks that come in and say, it actually might be worth around asking. But
totally. But again, in that situation, you're not competing really. Like I was in a situation, 15 offers on the table. But really, my competition was the top two guys because I know the market and I knew that this is probably what it's worth in this range. So I'm like, if there's 15 offers on the table, I'd basically scoot away the 12 because they're not even in the ballpark. So when you hear all these crazy offers, yes, it's true. The number of offers is high. How many are your actual competition? That's a different story, right?
Exactly.
I would encourage young people to talk to an agent, a professional in the local market, and actually figure out and talk to a mortgage broker because sometimes just walking into a bank, you don't get the help you need. I always recommend have a mortgage broker on your side that's going to fight for you. So when you have those two things, even if you're not ready to buy, pick a realtor's brain, pick a mortgage broker's brain. Be like, what do I need to do to make my next move? Because nothing's going to fall in your lap. You have to go out and get it.
You really got to be proactive, guys. At the end of the day, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, whatever profession you're from, finance profession, anything like that, you're good at that profession. Realtors, this is our bread and butter, this is our job. And not only that, but we love doing what we do.
Totally.
It doesn't even feel like work at this point. So go out and trust professionals. Go out of your comfort zone and be like, let me give you where my scenario is at. Let me give you what my requirements are at. And then let me see where you guide me and really sit down with professionals because that's at the end of the day there's only so much you on your own can do about all different kinds of investments because there's a lot to learn and especially with, as the market's rapidly changing year over year with a lot of regulations that are changing recently as well with international investment tax and all that kind of stuff in the last few years in these major markets. There's a lot happening, so you have to be current and not only be current but know how to apply that knowledge into getting what you need. So trust professionals, get out there and talk to them. Now, anything you'd like to tell the audience, specifically from your side, about the market itself? Anything you recommend, about what they should do in terms of if they were looking to get properties here and they're not sure about how to go about it?
Yeah, so I would say connect with a local professional. That's the best way. You can kind of Google properties on Real Estate Weekly or on realtor.ca.
Yeah.
It's a good resource to know what's going on, but connect with a local professional, interview agents.
Yeah.
Don't just go with the first one you meet.
Yeah.
Interview a couple and get to pick their brain, because you're going to learn so much about the local market. I can't really throw a blanket statement all for the whole market in Greater Vancouver, but if we were talking of this area in New Westminster, I could go into it. But I think education is key.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to sit down with someone who's going to tell you what the costs are associated with buying a property. What to expect throughout the purchasing process, how the entire system works of when you get pre-approved from the bank all the way to when you get the keys in your hands.
When you walk to the property.
Exactly, right? So there's a process there, and you should be educated on what that process looks like.
Exactly.
And so that's what I would recommend is education is key. Educate yourselves, and use a professional.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ray, for taking the time to talk to us again.
Thank you, man.
It's been phenomenal to kind of get a perspective of what's really going on in the market here. And again, going back to educating yourself, guys, this is the whole reason why we're doing this journey, to go from city to city across the country to showcase what these markets really have to offer right now, sitting down with professionals that are working in the fields right now. So get educated. Again, don't ever hesitate to reach out to professionals, because that is the only way you're going to help yourself and your families grow. Again, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Any questions you have, anything you'd like to recommend to us, always put it down below, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. That was fun.
Awesome.